So I am just finishing a chapter on Augustine's Trinitarian theology in Nicaea and its legacy. Part of the response to that traditional reading that seems to charge Augustine with all kinds of monadic tendencies is kind of summarized in this chapter by Ayres. And he basically turns the argument on its head. Usually people charge Augustine with being over Platonic in a sense that he puts the unity or oneness of God first and kind of relegates the threeness of the persons to a kind of secondary issue. But what Ayres says is that simplicity and that Platonic doctrine of divine simplicity and Platonism is used not to demonstrate the unity of the three persons, but to demonstrate their distinctiveness. So he says this: for Augustine, the grammar of simplicity is turned to just that task. It is ironic that the role Platonism plays in Augustine's doctrine of God is virtually the opposite of that it is taken to play by those who commonly criticize the Platonism in his theology. The grammar of God's simplicity, partially stemming from those Platonist engagements, serves not to make God a unitary essence or to replace biblical exegesis with discussion of the three Neoplatonic hypostases. Rather, that grammar serves to enhance the explanatory power of a fully Nicene Trinitarianism, in which the order of Trinitarian generation is preserved, and in which Father, Son, and Spirit are all equally bound by the terms of divinity, without ceasing to be other to each other. Augustine's Platonism serves the cause of good exegesis. What Augustine uses the doctrine of simplicity to affirm is that each of the persons of the Trinity is identical to their attributes. And I'm struggling to find the words because I've only just come across the ideas. He seems to be saying that since all of the divine persons are simple, they all possess certain attributes in and of themselves, which would kind of emphasize their individuality and unity. As far as I can see, Augustine wants to employ the doctrine of divine simplicity thoroughly, but not to say that the persons are identical to each other, or even make way for that tendency. Augustine clearly wants to affirm the traditional Nicene faith, that there are three persons and one God. I think perhaps what a lot of modern theologians have done is that they've seen Augustine's divine simplicity and assumed that that meant he was committed to some sort of Unitarian or monadic tendencies, or a monadic conception of God. But Ayres is saying, no, he uses that doctrine of simplicity to demonstrate the individuality of the three divine persons, and that they each have these attributes in and of themselves. Now, this is really complex, but it seems to me to be basically saying you can have the doctrine of divine simplicity, but that has to be determined by a commitment to Nicene faith. So I think that's interesting, and I think that the modern theologians, like I said, see divine simplicity, and as far as I can see, they're right in taking divine simplicity to its logical conclusion by saying that if God is identical to his attributes, If the Father is identical to his wisdom, and if the Son is identical to his wisdom, then the Father is identical to the Son. Now, I'm not sure whether Augustine responds to that kind of argument against divine simplicity, but it's clear that he's not taking divine simplicity to entail the complete identity of Father and Son. So that's something I kind of need a bit more clarification on at the moment. Apart from that, I will finish this chapter and then call it a day.